What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the BizDad podcast recap episode for this week. We're going to be talking about running a business this week. So you're going to listen to a bunch of recaps, a bunch of people talking about how they run their business, different things inside of their business. So please listen intently, take some notes, run back to the episode if you find something that strikes you that you just want to watch the full thing. We have some amazing guests with incredibly successful businesses, very insightful business acumen. So please jump back and listen to the full episode if you see something that really strikes you. But subscribe, all of that stuff. Keep listening to these recap episodes that we have for the month of December. But have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We'll see you all in the next year. What businesses are you operating yourself now that are all solely yours that you've started yourself?
Yeah, right now it's mostly like a management company and an investment company. The management company is what oversees and operates a couple of the businesses that I run. So rather than paying myself from the opportunities I receive, I have those opportunities pay my business, and that in turn then pays the people that help support me and help run my life. And through that management company, we're overseeing and operating a couple companies. And then we're also doing some like inner circle work, some group think concepts for people on the aspiring side of the journey and still looking to try to get some knowledge and get out of their own way and get to where they're trying to go. And then the investment side is I have a company that's set up just to make investments. I look at investing like a business. I think a lot of people that I know do that. And when you look at it from a business perspective, I think it gives you a different lens when you're making a decision. Because you're like, I got to manage the P&L, I got to manage the cash flows, I got to manage the humans that go along with this. So it's a business to me. Making investments is a business to me. We're actively looking to try to buy some service-based businesses in Austin and in and around Austin, landscaping, septic, you name it. But the thing I'll tell you is sellers haven't really capitulated. They think their stuff is still worth what it was in 21, maybe early 22. And you're like, dude, your revenue's down 40%. And they're like, yeah, but it was. I'm like, yeah, but I can't buy was. I'm buying it. What is it today?
Yeah.
So waiting for people to feel a little bit more pain, sitting on my hands, trying to be patient, which is really hard for me, but just trying to be patient and let opportunity come to me rather than feel like I have to chase and go get it.
I love to hear you say that because it makes me feel a little better because I was in when I was buying multifamily for a while, it was like, you guys are selling on the future of what you hope everything is going to be instead of where it actually is. And now they're selling on what it was instead of what it is. And at some point you have to be realistic in what you're selling. Like you can't just and so I'm realistic in what I'm buying. So that means a lot of sitting on my hands. I haven't bought anything in a year and a half, which drives me absolutely bonkers. But at the same point, I'll keep underwriting, I'll keep looking and hope for the best. But
yeah, that's the trick, Adam. Stay in the game. You don't want to get out of the game. You stay in the game. You keep underwriting. You don't get defeated. It's frustrating if you don't get defeated. And there will be an opportunity or an inning, if we're thinking about this as a baseball game, there will be an inning where you get your at-bats and all of a sudden you start making cracks. And the next thing you know, you hit a single, a double, a home run, and you put 4, 5, 6 on the board in one inning. So you just got to be patient. You got to keep sticking to your plan, stick to the vision you have for your life, stick to the core values you have for your life, and don't get caught in FOMO. FOMO is not an investment thesis. Like fear of missing out is not a reason to make decisions. The best thing that can happen is I say no to a deal because I was uncomfortable and that deal kills it for somebody else. By all means, awesome, like more to them. But the last thing I want is to say yes to a deal that I didn't feel comfortable with and then get caught with a nasty situation on my hands.
Yeah. That's super true. Somebody I heard recently, I don't remember who it was. I wish I could give credit to whoever it was, but I don't get to create the market. I just have to live in it. I just have to work in it and work around whatever's going on. So one of the things I've been trying to do is adjust to like service-based industry, business type stuff. I'm trying to learn as much as I can about buying those. Ever since I saw Cody Sanchez at one of the Go Bunnets events years ago, I was like, dude, I totally need to do this, but I was so focused on apartments, I didn't. So is that something that's been a recent pivot of yours looking at service-based industries? Is that something that you've always been interested in, or how did that kind of work? And is that where you see a better opportunity now than any of the other investments you've been looking at?
Yeah, I've always been super fascinated by it. Again, like I've always believed that service is the Trojan horse to knowledge. And I'd take that even further to say it's the Trojan horse to whatever you want. And so I look at it the same with the consumer, right? If I can cut your grass better than anybody can cut your grass, when I want to clean your house, I can clean your house better than anybody wants. When I can clean your pool better than anybody. So it's just like this. I just see that providing service for people is something people will continue to pay for. And I don't think that AI is close enough yet to cutting grass and doing that stuff for you, or cleaning your pool and mixing the chemicals yet. I'm sure someday somebody's going to try to create something and it'll probably work. But in the meantime, what I like boring cash flowing businesses that China can't come in and take away from me. Hey, robots can't come in and take away from me. but that actually make people's lives better. Like provide them a service that actually makes their life a little bit better. A guy came over yesterday and cut the grass for us. He made our life better because our life was really full, really busy. And how lucky are we to be able to afford to pay for him to cut the grass? And how lucky is he to be able to find us to pay him to cut the grass? So like, I like to find relationships like that. And that's what the service-based business is for me. Better opportunity than anything else. I think there will be a great opportunity for everything potentially in the near future. I still don't think in the service-based business, you're seeing quite a great opportunity. I still don't think in multifamily, you're seeing quite a great opportunity, but I do think we're very close to both of them being a great opportunity.
That's awesome to hear. That's because I hope that you are accurate, because I've been waiting for that opportunity to rise back up again. It's been killing me over the last couple of years, but man, oh man. What kind of tactics are you using on a daily basis with your employees in that sense? Like picture that parent being one of your employees and they're doing some stuff. Like how are you working with your employees to make sure that you're getting the best out of them, just like you're expecting the best out of your kids? How does that look for you?
It all ties back to core values, and then make sure you're in alignment on the core values. And then did I clearly communicate it? Generally speaking, Adam, like every single thing that's an issue inside of our personal lives or our business is a reflection or a shadow of what we're having inside. So if something's going wrong in the business, it's probably because I didn't clearly communicate it, or it wasn't, I didn't articulate it, or I didn't audit it, or I didn't answer the question, or I didn't do something, right? So the first thing I do is ask myself, what am I doing in this situation? What could I have done better? And I always go to my people and say, hey, look, that newsletter just doesn't work for me. How can I help you? What can I do? Do you want me to write a couple so you can get the tone and the voice? Do you want me to help you write it? Like, can I edit it before you send it out? Again, for me, it's all about service. So I show up and say like, how can I help you? How can I help you? How can I help you? And oftentimes when you do that, people will come back and be like, I need to do better. I need to do better. And the best way to lead people is to get them to step up for themselves. There's that billion-dollar saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink it, which I still don't fully understand. I get the concept, but I've not spent enough time with horses to know if they'll drink by water or not. But with our people and our employees, our kids are the same way. There are some days where I have to yell at my daughter and say, we need to clean up your room. It's time. 3, 2, 1, let's get this cleaned up. But like yelling isn't going to change her desire to do it. So I'm like, hey, Rylan, I can totally see you're frustrated right now. We got to clean up your room. Can I help you? Like, how can I help you get this cleaned up? Yeah. And just be the support system. I try to do the same for our people. Like, I was actually talking to one of our people yesterday, and I'm like we were talking about we had some frustrations actually launching a new GoBundance site. And I was like, the first thing I said was, what could I have done differently? How could I have helped this? Did I not give it the attention it deserves? Did I not audit the plan well enough? Should we have walked through the plan? Should we have done a dry run? What could I have done differently? And the first thing Employee said right away was like, this is not your responsibility. This is ours. It's 100% on us. I was like, no, I'm the leader of the business, so it's 100% on me, but I hear you and I appreciate that. Now, how can I help you? What's our plan? Hey, let's do a postmortem. Let's look at it. Let's understand why you made those decisions. And I try not to be an asshole because it doesn't get you anywhere in life. Yeah. I'm intense. I demand excellence, but at the same time, thank God we're not doing brain surgery because there'd be a lot of dead people. Like the decisions we're making on a daily basis aren't life or death. Like we might lose some money. We might have some downtime on the website. Is that desired? No. But let's put it in perspective. Thank goodness we're not in the Gaza Strip or in Israel. Like it could be so much worse. Yeah. It could be so much worse.
So you got into real estate 2017. What led you down the path to go become a real estate agent and open up your own branch of RE/MAX?
So it was an accident on my end. So we moved back to the States summer of 2017. I thought I was just going to jump into corporate tech because that's where my background was. And in my mind, I had a pretty strong resume. But we came back into town right at the point where my brother-in-law had been on a real estate team for about a year, was doing really well. And he wanted to start his own team. So that was right when we were coming back, and my brother-in-law, Sam, this is not British Sam, this is American Sam. I have 2 brother-in-laws' names. This is when American Sam talked to his sister, my wife, Sarah, said, hey, Sarah, you should talk to Tammy about real estate. I think he'd be good at it.
Hold on. You've got 2 brothers-in-law named Sam. Your sister's name is Sarah, and your wife's name is Sarah.
No, I probably said that really confusing. Sam, my brother-in-law, his sister is Sarah, who is my wife.
Okay, gotcha. For some reason I thought it was your sister, Sarah. I was like, golly.
Things are about to get weird. No, my wife, Sarah. So Sam talked to Sarah and said, hey, you should talk to Ted about real estate. never considered real estate as an option ever. When Brett as an idea, made sure to just pay about a ton, talk to everybody and to say, what do you think? This is an option. What do you think? Looking for someone to say, this is a bad idea. Yeah. And everyone was like, oh my gosh, you should totally do that.
Especially 2017. Yeah.
Yeah. So July 2017, I took my real estate classes. In August 2017, got licensed. And that was when my brother-in-law, Sam, and I started Team Steady Real Estate. And so the team was just Sam and his idiot older brother-in-law, Taylor, trying to hustle around and sell any and every house possible. So it was something that I never saw myself doing, but now something I can't really imagine ever not doing.
Awesome. So you got into it 2017, started doing the agent stuff, selling houses. When did you start to actually grow this thing? Because there's so many agents out there that are just, they just buy or they sell a house and that's it. They sell a house, they help somebody buy a house, that's it. And then you decided you were going to build a team instead and run it that way. How did that conversation go? What was that path?
Yeah, selfishly, we wanted to start a team because real estate is an individual sport that we wanted to try to make a team sport in a sense, and just know the value of having a great team culture and being surrounded by like-minded individuals that are going to push you. We started a team end of summer 2017. 2018, we brought on our first full-time agent. His name's Lars Anderson, who's also in GoBundance, who is now our third team leader. So me, Sam, and Lars. And Sam got up and running. He taught me. I wrote it down and systematized it. Then we passed it on. I got up and running really quick. We brought in Lars, said, okay, can we do this a third time? And Lars got up and running even quicker than we did. And every year we picked out maybe one to three agents. So now it's Sam, Lars, and 12 agents on the team. So 15 agents, including us. So we've never grown for the sake of growth. Everybody that's come onto the team, for the most part, has been someone that went to college with all of those guys. Most of the guys on the team all went to a local Christian university here in the Twin Cities called Hull. And so it's, hey, my buddy Lars is on the team. Oh, hey, my buddy Brett's on the team. Oh. And so just sitting down with people and just saying, like, hey, do your values align? Are you going to add to the culture? So this is hard to you. As long as we set good expectations, come on board and let's try it. And so now I've got to a point where we just have such an awesome guys. I almost feel bad talking about my job because I really actually genuinely enjoy my job. But they work with the best people on the face of the planet. And we're all entrepreneurs, self-employed. So we don't have to play by any of the rules that you might need to when you're in the corporate structure, where you have to be careful about talking about your faith, or you can't pray as a team, or you can't have this back. Well, it's just really fun, really great.
What are you doing to keep your team motivated and focused on the business as a whole for them?
Well, I'd say the main thing is there's the three guys team, and then we have second level leaders, like the guys that have been in it for 3, 4, 5 who are doing well. So we kind of see you. Really just pouring into them, giving them ownership of the direction of the team. Hey, what do you guys see? What do we need? How can we support the guys? They're a little bit closer to the guys that are more on the beginning part of there. So really pouring into those guys, giving them ownership over what's the direction that we're going and we're doing as a team. So my thing is pouring into, to put it in the military terms, if we're the generals, it's like our lieutenants. How do we just take care of our lieutenants and make sure that they feel supported, and like they know what's going on, and they feel like they have some ownership over the direction of what's going on?
For sure. Yeah. And that makes a huge difference in knowing that and having that feeling. So I like that for sure.
I was trained to become a physical therapist, went through schooling for it, and I decided I wanted to up my game in physical therapy, and I became a board certified clinical specialist in orthopedics because I loved orthopedics. I loved post-surgical patients. I loved learning about it. Like one of those things, like my son is saying, I'm finally learning stuff that I really want to learn. Yeah. I can sink my teeth into as opposed to memorizing. Did that and then found out that became really easy to treat patients, but the business aspect of it was something that was daunting. And somebody gave me a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and then I I know everybody says that book, but really I read the book and I started having an itch, started thinking in a completely different way. And then that same person gave me another book called E-Myth by Michael Gerber, how to systematize stuff. And then obviously once you had that in your head, it's just, you can't get rid of it. And I was like, what am I doing here? Why I'm building somebody else's business? Let me try to do this for myself. And I decided to go out on my own and open my own company. And then I built it from 2004 to 2017. Every day in the business. And we'll talk about how I got my kids involved and into that too. But then I sold it in 2017 to a private equity company and then helped them build it. And we were about 100 offices across the nation. And then another private equity came and bought the whole thing out.
That sounds awesome.
But because I was doing that the whole time while I was doing that, I had an itch about real estate. I just didn't want to be a landlord. And then I realized I can invest passively, and I learned all about that. Then I had a lot of friends who were physicians and surgeons and whatnot in the medical field, and they said, we'll jump in with you. So I would sometimes go to negotiate better rates with syndicators and things, and that became its own business, believe it or not, negotiating, but being able to vet out investments. And then after I was completely out of physical therapy, a consulting business just worked out of all of that stuff that I was doing. Okay. So now I consult for healthcare stuff, healthcare physical therapy stuff, or healthcare private equity stuff. And then I also consult with real estate syndicators for things that they need.
So when did you transition from employee to business owner or entrepreneur?
Myself? When did I do it? Probably in 2004 is when I started opening my practice. Prior to that, I think I graduated in 1998 or something like that. And then I opened my own in 2004.
So for 6 years, then you were working for somebody else, learning the practice, doing all your stuff.
Yeah, I think even prior to that, I started some stuff, and I think I officially said I was leaving. So what happened was I ran 2 offices for somebody else. And I don't know if you heard that, but I ran 2 offices for somebody else. And then my hours that I made for myself were Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, all day. I would work 13.5 hours a day. So it let me... Tuesday, Thursdays, I was free. So Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays, I opened up my own practice, which was very far from my original practice that I worked for somebody else. So I started that process going right away. For a while, I was busting my hump, as you could tell, if you're working all day, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays, until I was generating enough income that it was matching or more than matching my full-time salary. So then when I left my full-time salary, it wasn't like I was hurting. There was no point. So and that made it an easier transition.
Do you now, or did you then have business coaches start your own stuff, or did you just play around with it and figure it out as you went?
So actually, that's a really interesting story. What happened up till now, up to me starting my practice? No, I didn't have business coaches. I didn't have anything. I actually just had friends that were opening their private practice. So basically, I would call my friends up. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Asking all these people. Well, once I started, my own private practice, and I was going along and I was building my patient volume, and I realized, I said, if I keep doing this, I'm going to max out at some point, but it's still not the kind of income that I really want to make. I need to figure out a better play. I keep asking Joe Schmo and Fred over here what they're doing. What do they know? They're just doing whatever they think is right. But like, I was professionally trained to be a physical therapist, but nobody's training me to be a business owner. I'm just taking stabs at it, and some things work, some things don't. So there's got to be a better way. So some people told me about different CEO programs that you can get or actually go to and learn how to be a business owner. A friend of mine told me about this company down in Florida, and I said, okay, let me go down. They had a free thing that I went to. I went there and I listened to them, and believe it or not, they were very specific to physical therapy. They literally will train you to be an owner of a physical therapy company or CEO and be able to how to actually increase your operations and grow. And I was like, this is what I need. Like, I need this type of structure to get me from A to where I want to, A to Z. So I had, I think, $55,000 saved up in the bank by that point. And they were offering me a program, which basically like a 5-year CEO training program. For, I don't know. I forget how much it was, but I put down exactly $35,000 right then and there. And everybody else was looking at me like, what are you, crazy? I was like, if I don't put it down and go all in, it won't happen. And if it doesn't happen, all I'm going to be doing is 10 years from now going, I'm still doing the same thing I was doing before, and I'm still making the same complaints that I was complaining about before, but I'm not doing anything about it. So once I put that money down, I was 100% vested. There was no, oh, let me back out of it. It was like, I will do the training because I just paid all that money that took me all this time to save up, and I'm in, and I know this company can get me to where I need it to.
Yeah. And I think that there's some wisdom in that thought process too, because you're not going to get all of the information people want for the rest of their life, and any business they want, they can go find on YouTube. But they do it, right? They could say all day long they want to do something. They don't go to YouTube and go research it. Most people are in, some of them would be nothing.
Yeah.
But if you put money down and you say, I'm going to spend some money on this and I'm going to go make a difference, you'd be amazed what you're able to accomplish, because all of a sudden you're like, yeah, I put money into this. I'm going to waste that money. This is not but it didn't work. And put the effort into it. Yeah.
So they coached. So that was my first forte into coaching. They coached me all the way through, like, how do I have to do everything? I would go down there. I would fly down there. I would spend 3 days, learn a specific course, whether it's hiring and team building, whether it's HR, whatever it was. I would learn that. Then I would go back to my practice and implement it for the next 8 weeks. And then I would go back down, learn something else and implement it and add it. So I would just constantly learn something and add it into my practice. And you would see my practice just slowly moving in the right direction. And don't get me wrong, there's plenty of mistakes I made still. Of course. Okay. Hired the wrong people, had to fire them, had people steal from me, had to get rid of them, just do different things. But yeah, mistakes were made.
So I want to go into when you sold the company. How did you get to a point where you decided, like, when were you at the point where you said, well, we bring it in until a majority of this thing?
So as I was building the company for around 2000, I don't know if it was 15 or 14, what I started to notice is I was growing, but I didn't have the ability to negotiate higher insurance rates, reimbursement rates. Okay. The cost of having an employee kept going higher and higher, meaning our insurance costs, meaning health insurance for our employees, were going higher and higher. The cost of having an employee, the salaries were going higher than the reimbursement was. Reimbursement wasn't moving, but the salary were just moving up higher. The cost of paper was going up. And I said, okay, I see the writing on the wall. Either I have to really expand very rapidly so I can control costs, or I have to see whatever other options are there. At the same time, I would see these things called accountable care organizations or physician groups being bought out. Like hospital groups would buy out the physicians, right? And then they would tell the physicians, oh, you have to send all your PT patients to the hospital. So I saw my market share starting to shrink more and more. I said to myself, how do I not just eke by? What's the point of getting this far just to eke by? How do I 10x all this stuff? What are my different options out there? Yes, I can fight the fight. Maybe I can do that. That's an option. Or I can look at what they call strategics, which are other physical therapy companies that want to buy you over. Or I can look at private equity looking to get into this space and partner with them. So I entertained all these different options. And I talked to different people. I talked to them to find out how do they value my company from a monetary standpoint? What are the metrics that they use to value the company? And then I realized, okay, this is what they do. It's a very similar formula. It's always a multiple off an EBITDA, adjusted EBITDA. Okay. So I'm like, okay. So the higher I make the more profitable I make my company, the more attractive I look in whatever regard I do. Okay. That's good to know. Do I want to do a strategic? Do I want to do private equity? The strategics basically just want you because they want you to be a physical therapist that works treating patients all day. They give you enough money that I have enough money in my bank account, but I have to work now all day for you. The patient. I did so much training to become a CEO. I was like, I don't know if I want to go back to just starting treating patients anymore, because I stepped out of patient treatment altogether for a while because I was just running my company. So I said, I don't want to, in my head, that was going backwards. It's like having a certain skill set, but not utilizing it. It's like Superman not utilizing any of his power. You're like, what's the point? I said, a private equity coming in that's new in the space really is hungry for it. They really want to grow, and I could probably help them to grow that. So I started thinking that was the best way. But I said to myself, for the next 2 years, I'm going to go to town working on building up the company, getting that adjusted EBITDA as high as possible. So when I am ready to sell to a private equity company, I have the highest margins. So I look very attractive to get the highest value for my company. And that's what I did. So I thought that was the best way for me to catapult my company to 10x it for me personally. So while I was exiting, I was investing, I think I was mentioning before, in syndications, bringing capital to that. And then some of the syndicators I would get to know. And then they said that, oh, you're done with your company. Do you want to help us? And I said, help you how? They're like, you keep bringing so much money to us syndicators. Maybe you want to do it more formally, start helping us with raising capital and things like that. And I said, I don't really want to be a capital raiser. That's not really what I want to do. Plus, I had just exited out of my situation, out of my company. And I said, I want to relax. I want to do this. I had all these plans. And 2 weeks later, I said, I'm bored. I need something to keep my focus. And see, the truth is what people don't realize, and nobody feels bad for you, but here's the dirty little secret. When all you've been doing for the last 20 something years is building a company, you're getting up at 5 a.m. and that's what you're on the treadmill and you're working out and you're thinking, how do I make my company better and stronger? And you go to sleep thinking, that's your passion. That's your focus, right? When you finally achieve what you're looking for, which is to sell the company, all of a sudden that's gone. And now you're like, what do I do? Yeah, you take a vacation. But then afterwards, you're like, well, what is my passion now? What is the thing that I'm focused on? So I quickly realized I didn't have enough there. I thought I did with hobbies and things like that. But after a couple hours a day and I did all that, it's okay, that's not enough. Because I realized I need to do something else. So that's why when people reached out to me, I said, yeah, let me help. So I built a consulting company. And in the consulting company, what happened was I didn't want to be a capital raiser, but I knew I had enough information that I've helped enough syndicators and I knew enough about real estate that I could help in a different way. At the same time, I was getting reached by people in physical therapy, what we call healthcare services, which is any company that's healthcare that's facing customer facing. Any physician office that treats customers, any eye doctor that speaks. I knew I had experience in building that type of scenario. So I wanted to stay in touch with private equity, healthcare private equity. But I still go to a lot of healthcare private equity, like conferences and things like that, to stay in touch with that because that's what I came from. So I still want to stay in touch with it. On the other end of it, on the real estate end of it, what I had put together was for certain syndicators, they're good operators. But when it comes to capital raising or raising capital, they don't want to have the nurturing of talking to investors constantly. What they've done in the past was call mom, dad, aunt, uncle, and friends. But once you're trying to scale operations, you can't just keep calling mom, dad for the same amount of money again and again as they're trying to raise. But they haven't put anything together that says, okay, this is how we constantly raise. And I had experience doing it because I was doing it for so often. So my company now acts like an outsourced investor relations department for syndicators that we fully vet out, that we're like, these guys are good operators. They've done so many different deals. They've had so many different cycles. They have a good management team, but they just haven't figured out the investor portion of it. So we act as their investor relations department. So in certain cases, we have different clients. We'll help put together pro formas that are, for this one, I'll give you an example. For this one family, that's a family office. They do all their own real estate deals internally, right? They don't have retail investors that are people like regular people investing. So they don't even know what that looked like. They don't know how that conversation goes. They don't know what the pro forma for that looks like. So we had to build a pro forma, put a pref rate in, put different hurdles in. So we help with that. We put together webinars. We would talk on the webinars and explain to retail investors, this is the investment. We put together a landing page. We put together a funnel. We would be at the end of the funnel. We capture them on the potential investors and we talk to them to invest. So that's what we did for that one family. For another company, we act as the end of the funnel. We're talking to investors. It's just not one conversation, right? When you're talking to investors, it's a nurturing program. So that's what we've been doing for different syndicators.
Do you think you went into entrepreneurship because that's what you saw your father do? Or did you have a different path that you had in mind and just ended up with this? How did that transition go?
I think I never thought about doing this because that's what my parents do, because my dad's an entrepreneur. Obviously, a lot of conversations, we have these similar attributes and conversations. And he'll tell me, wow, I can't believe you're thinking that way. That's exactly how I thought when I was your age and blah, blah, and all that stuff. But for me, it was more like, for me, my passion wasn't necessarily to start a business. My passion was to solve a problem. And solving that problem through a business is just, it's one plus one. I remember even before the military, when internet was starting, like the late 90s, I'd try to teach myself to code maybe a little and try to solve problems, like inefficient problems, how I can just solve that. Cause it's stupid that if it just exists, let's see if I can solve it with some tech. And so like from an early age, I'd move in that direction of solving problems with technology. Every morning you wake up and you just see diamonds laying around.
I know. I looked at my wife's ring and I said, I think when I bought that, the picture could have looked better. I don't.
Yeah. So after the military, we're fast forwarding, I guess, a bit, but after the military, I went to school, right? I was 24 years old, I think. And this was a college in Israel. And I was at college, I was working as a sailing instructor because Navy and makes sense. And then my last year of school, I got into this program that's funded by Sam Zell, the billionaire philanthropist who unfortunately died a few months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And he funds this program that is focused on entrepreneurship and leadership during the last year of studies at this school where I went. And I got into that program. And it goes from team formation to finding an idea to solve and then building a business around that. And then, everything along those lines for a whole year. So it's not an accelerator, but it's more it's like an academic program, but it's also really like real world foots on the ground experience. And so the beginning of that program, it's like, all right, you form a team. We were 4 guys, and now we're set with this objective to go, all right, let's go find a problem to solve and a business to build. When you're starting from scratch and looking for those types of businesses to build, either you have an idea or you have a problem, or you want to find and explore what problems are out in the world that you can solve with this team. And we just started speaking with tons of people. And at some point, a friend of a friend who worked in the Israeli diamond exchange buildings, and Israel used to be, or still is, there are like 5 hubs in the world for the trade of diamonds.
Okay.
And Ramat Gan, which is a city in Israel, is one of those hubs. And so this guy took us around the diamond exchange building, which is like, imagine the most advanced security methods in the military, and then multiply that by 5. That's like the entrance to a diamond exchange building. All right. It's like biometric scanning, and they take a picture of you, and then you have to go to the specific floor. It's just like crazy. But then when you cross security, it's 50 years back in time. You like walk down these hallways with a lot of doors and notes, with handwritten notes on the doors saying, I'm looking to buy these and these types of diamonds. I'm looking to sell these and these types of diamonds. And you have brokers walking down these hallways with suitcases full of diamonds, knocking on doors. That's locally. So imagine how it happens on a global standard. Like, these are people around the world with diamonds in places that you can't even say on a podcast to try and sell and buy these diamonds. And so the whole industry, like, super inefficient, super family based, old fashioned based, handshake stuff, trade. And we're like, wait, you can buy a Porsche on eBay. Why can't you buy a diamond, see it good online? So let's just, how hard could it be? Let's take a diamond, take a really good image, like 360, and give that as a service to these diamond dealers. Instead of traveling around the world with diamonds and selling and buying them, just send an image.
Yeah.
We're ignorant 6-year-olds, 28-year-olds, whatever we were, and thinking everything's possible. And we found a tech guy, gave him a diamond that another friend lended us, and asked him, hey, can you photograph this diamond in like many different angles to create a 360 like interactive image? And it took him like a day. We paid him a few $100, and he came back with this 3D image with a link to an image that's like a really high resolution image of a diamond. And we showed that to people, and they were blown away. And basically we took that and we went to an investor and said, hey, we can take this image and we can create a machine that does this over and over again and create a standard. The funny thing is, until today, we have not managed to recreate that first initial image.
Oh, really?
But we still did it like really good job at consistently photographing diamonds. And we built this like microwave machine that you put a diamond in, you create that image, and you can then trade it online. Now that's the standard for diamond imagery. So almost every diamond you'll see online is photographed with our tech. So that's a story, like how we reached it. It's a crazy, one of the things that sort of gave me and my co-founders is this understanding that even if you know nothing about an industry, you can learn. And most of the time, that's the advantage, that you know nothing about the industry, because you don't have the limitation, like the mindset that something's not possible. It's just, hey, you look from the outside, hey, this is stupid that it works this way. We can solve it. So anyway, that's the diamond industry.
That's really interesting. How much pushback did you get inside of the diamond industry, especially there in Israel, when they're all so used to, no, you can't do that? And like, how much pushback did you get? And we're still, I just need to bring that briefcase over to X country to really make this sale. Like, what kind of stumbling blocks did you see there?
Oh, dude, that's a great question, because the responses we got were crazy, like in a bad way. We're like, no one is ever going to buy a diamond based on an image, or I want to smell the diamond before I buy it. I'm like, what the hell? There's no smell to a diamond. What are you talking about? I want to see the life in the diamond. There was a ton of those responses, but these were predominantly from the older segment within the industry. The younger generation, the kids because these are family-run businesses, they were born with freaking iPhones in their hands, and they want technology. They want to be able to open their phone and look at an image, right? And so it was a great timing for us because there was a transition going on between that the younger generation, the older generation. A lot of problems with trading diamonds around the world, with customs limitations, and a lot of politics involved with that as well. But the initial responses were like, no one's ever going to buy diamond based on this.
Mm-hmm.
It was hard.
Interesting. I bet.
We spent the first, we started the company beginning of 2012. And in 2013, we opened a subsidiary in India because India, not many people know, accounts for 95% or even 99% of the global diamond polishing or manufacturing. It's all in Mumbai and Surat. That's India. And so my co-founder and I spent 6 months, 2 weeks on off to Mumbai, knocking on every single door in the Diamond Exchange building in India. And trying to convince people to send us their diamonds to photograph so that they can. And the cool thing is every diamond we photographed went online to our website, had a watermark of our company. And then when that manufacturer in India would send it to a store in New York, and the store would see this image with a Sagoma watermark on the bottom and say, holy crap, I want more of these. Yeah. And so then the dealers would have to bring diamonds to us to be photographed.
I have my own company today, which manages 430 apartment units, C-class properties in Dayton, Ohio. So I'm an owner operator there. I own the property management company. There was the legacy portfolio, which is my family's business, which is here in Central Ohio, which is 900 units of C-class property. So that functions, and my sister is over there running that. My brother ran that, and I ran that for a while. Then you have this other side, which is the investment side, where we invest in other people's deals. And whether we're joint venturing or we're general partners or LP investors. And then we have some joint ventures on the development side. And we're all partners in a lot of this stuff together. Mm-hmm. And so you have these multiple levels. And I work on the personal financial statements. I work on the corporate taxes. We have about 35 entities that make up this big machine. And it's gotten bigger than this little family business, right? It's gotten this big. And along the way, we've created partnerships that my dad put together, a partnership, mom and dad, in the year 2000, where it was long-term employees and it was grandkids. And over the years, they've gifted shares of that entity, and that entity now owns 3 multifamily assets, and it's invested in 6 or 7 other deals. So it's this multifaceted thing. And over the years, my folks have gifted shares to myself and gifted shares to grandkids and gifted shares to long-term employees. Right. And so by default, they're my partners. And I'm the managing member of that entity now, along with my sister. And so along the way, when there's proceeds or distributions from that, I put them over into another bucket with my kids, and they have their own entity, and it invests. So it's invested in multiple entities now. And so by default, the grandkids are partners in a lot of things. And so what I've tried to teach them is, hey, you might not want to go down the path of being in the real estate world as a GP or a syndicator or whatever role you want to play, but you are going to be limited partners. And so this is a lot here. Follow me. So
no, you're good. Yeah.
Follow your passions, kids. Do what you want to do, but know that if you learn how to be a good partner with your cousins, then you can do what you want. And hopefully this passive investing world will allow you to live lifestyle and follow your passion.
How long did it take to build up those 430 doors? What has been your mission and goals behind your real estate company?
So the property management portion of my world, I bought a 300 unit portfolio, 3 buildings on the edge of downtown Dayton in 2016.
Perfect.
And the big thing with that is when I was and I was still working for the family business, but what I realized is that, and we had not taken outside money. It was all internal family money for a lot of years. And so when I realized in the family business that the cost structure wasn't going to support outside investors, I decided that I would put this new financial structure together and this new, more modern syndication structure, if you will, together when I bought the Dayton portfolio. And so I bought the 300 units in one big swoop with my family, we typically like to own 60% of the deal or 50% plus. And so that's how that's structured, with 40% outside money, outside investors. And so that gave us gave me the ability to grow in a new way that was outside the family, but still took care of the family. And then those 3 buildings operate out of a central leasing office. And I've added a 4th building that's literally right next door. And then this summer I added a 5th building. And so that's grown. And the strategy there is really to build it up. So when we do decide to sell it, it's of scale that a larger buyer would come in and instantly have scale in the market. I look at around that neighborhood and if it makes sense, I buy it, but been very cautious. In hindsight, I probably shouldn't have bought the 5th building this summer because it's been crazy out there. But that was the strategy there. And it's nice. Looking across the whole portfolio, I have in my Texas stuff where we have 2,000 units as well that I'm invested in. That's been a value add, flip the properties as fast as we can for the past 10 years. My partner is the property manager down there. My brother and sister and I work with him and guarantee loans, and he runs the day-to-day. And my family's invested in those as well. And then I have my day-to-day property management company. And then again, the legacy that my family, they manage for stuff that I'm a part owner in. We have a nice geographic diversification, and while it's all multifamily, we have geographical diversity. We have within the asset class, we have some Class A, we have some Class B, we have some Class C. A nice mix of active and passive across that.
Okay.
And
I just saw it. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Oh, no, it makes perfect sense. Yeah, it's funny. I just saw a deal for up in Beaver Creek just come across my email. And I was like, once you mentioned Dayton, I was like, you probably already know about it because that's your market. But I used to live out in Dayton, so that's why I still get some emails about some different properties that are up there. And I haven't even looked at investing out there in a long time. But
Midwest is the economy where it's at today and what's happening, what we're seeing in our Texas assets. Occupancy is down. You got insurance challenges on the deal. And then it's nice to be in the Midwest. This is when the Midwest thrives, right? Like we have consistent rent growth. It's just steady Eddie. I like having this in the portfolio. We're right across from downtown Dayton, right by the Art Institute and the Masonic Temple. We've got Wright Pat. It's just a nice solid. So I like to look and see, okay, what do I have? So the stability of the Midwest is great right now. And that's why people are looking here, and Texas people are coming for higher yields. I look at it that way as well. And also I have a development business. So we're joint venturing. I have 85 units that are going to be finishing up here on the east side of downtown. So a new construction. Got 130 units in a joint venture being built in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I've got a little bit of everything.
That's awesome. What have you noticed right now in the market? Now, by the time this comes out, it's going to be a couple months from now, and who the heck knows what's going to happen in just a couple months right in the market. But what have you been noticing right now as far as buying? Because I'm looking at deals in the Midwest. I've bought out in Indiana. I've had a few different deals, and I'm looking more out in Indiana again. Because down here in Florida is nearly impossible at the moment. It's between the insurance rates that are $1,000 a door to any number of things that are just dreadful. All the prices are going up, but the interest rates are going up. It's been tough. But what have you been seeing struggles wise, and what have you been seeing strengths wise in the market, especially in multifamily?
Yeah, I will go back a little bit. I started off 2022 with one business plan and had to pivot very hard, right? I was we're going to buy. And I'm going to have this company doing this. And this is my plan. And that went out the window immediately. And then I decided I want to learn this development business. And I've been buying land in Central Ohio as well. So we have we've got a pipeline of a couple hundred units that we can develop. But so we spent 2022 looking for deals, and the delta between what the seller wants and what the market can finance, it was 20%, right? Or 15 so I see it coming down a little bit, but the delta's too big for things to make sense the interest rates going up, it erases all your value add strategy. So why try to fight the Fed? It just doesn't work. Yeah. And that value add strategy has pretty much gone out of the window unless you're underwriting it at ultra conservative at today's interest rates with an exit cap rate that's a point higher, or some super creative owner financing, or an asset that's distressed so much that you're getting such a bargain on it. And so the last deal that I bought, it had to make sense at 7.5% because that's what I could finance it at. So I think that spread needs to come down, and we do have a couple deals in Texas that are in trouble that are just not going to make it. So it's hunkering down, trying to make smart decisions, taking virtually no risk, and understanding some of the passive investments. What's the debt look like? Okay, what's going on? I'm in a couple deals that have variable rate debt. I know I have a capital call coming. Where am I going to get the cash for that capital call coming? But I think if we're climbing Everest, we're at base camp for the next 2 years. We're going to hang out at base camp, foundational planning, get everything ready for the next level. I've been through this before, right? You go back to pre-great financial crisis, the apartment industry was already in a recession because the government at that time was promoting home ownership. So occupancy was already down and you couldn't rent an apartment for what people could go get a house. So it's just realizing that now's not the time to take great risk. It's time to hunker down and just stay in your lane and just get the foundation right.
Yeah, it's been rough it's almost been demoralized. Like I barely even want to underwrite deals. It's it's just exhausting. What's the point? Like I can even tell looking at asking prices, I'm like, no, there's no way. Yeah, maybe 2 years ago you could have got that, but right now there's no chance. Even last year you probably could have got that for sure, but this year it's just not in the cards.
And one thing I do want to, hit on, which is interesting, is you said demoralizing, right? Like it's depressing sometimes. And I'm not going to lie. I went to my wife. I said, wife. I said, honey,
listen here, wife.
I went to wife. That didn't come out right. I went to my wife. I said, hey, honey, I said, of any time in my life, I need your support right now more than ever. It's tough out there. This is the most messed up I've seen it. And I need you, when you go through the 5 languages of love, I need the positive reinforcement and I need to know that I'm doing a good job and I'm working hard. I said, I need to be told that because I'm struggling right now because I go and I talk to the banker and it's miserable for him. I talk to this guy, it's miserable. I talk to this investment. Oh gosh. So I'm with you. It's challenging to hear the negativity all the time and still remain positive. It's tough. And I see that. And this is the first time guys are talking about it. It's tough. And it's challenging. Like you said, it's demoralizing sometimes. And so it's been a challenge to go there and be the warrior that we've been for the past 10 years.
I mentioned it in a previous podcast. I don't remember even who told me, but it was that you can't control the market. You just have to participate in it. We have no choice. You've got to participate in it. Right now, you're in the market, whether you like it or not. You've got units, you've got deals, you've got stuff, right? So we're already in the market. Now we just have to participate. And what is it that we're going to participate in? It sounds like, when did you start the development stuff? It sounds like that was semi-recent. Where was that stemming from the change in the business structure in 2022 or the business plan in 2022?
No, the sandbox that my family has played in is just east of Central Ohio, and it's just east of downtown. It's a very defined area. So over the years, and that neighborhood is gentrified. It's a first-tier suburb, if you will, of downtown. So 1890s, 1900s. Anyway, it's gentrifying right now. And so growing up, we've been invested in that neighborhood for 50 years. And so along the way, my father picked up lots and various pieces, and I made a big purchase in 2016. I bought up a bunch of really great real estate, like land and a grocery store. And so the plan was always, when we had the cash flow and when we felt like we had the financial position, that we would enter into new construction. And so this has been 50 years in the making, but we finally felt we would get into the development. And so dipping our toe in through a joint venture, we didn't want to try to do it all on ourselves. And back in 2020, it felt like it was time to get that part of our world. And I love to learn, I love to learn new things. And I'll tell you what, the development business is radically different than the cash flow existing asset multifamily business. And I wanted to venture in at the right time with the right partners, with the right amount of risk. And so it just felt like it was the right time to jump in. But today we have this land and we have a couple hundred units in the pipeline, and we were going to start down the development path, but now it's whoa. So I think we're going to, pull the plug and make sure, because the development deals just do not pencil today. They make 0 sense. The risk is too great. And so we'll just sit for now and wait. Okay. So we're going to pause that world.
What did you study in college?
I studied music business, like entertainment business. It was a really obscure program in Nashville, Tennessee.
That sounds like the place that music business degree would be found. Yes.
It was great. I spent my first 5-6 years working in the music business, which was a lot of fun, a lot of late nights and not great for family life. And then I said, oh, and then I went to the concert business from there. So another career that was a lot of late nights and travel. And I worked for the biggest concert promoter in the world and ran a VIP program. And then I started a personal concierge service, taking care of high net worth clients, taking care of their concert tickets, their travel, their dinner reservations, their private flights, their personal gifting. And I was good at serving people. I was good at hospitality. And then I started working with high net worth membership organizations. I worked with Tiger 21. I worked with Family Office Association. I worked with YPO and other groups. I eventually got into technology because those types of groups didn't have technology platforms to help them scale. And I started working on those projects and eventually launched a tech company. And that took me up to about 6 months ago.
Yeah. So you helped me walk right down that path. I think you saw where I was going. I'm trying to figure out the path of how you got into tech, because there's a big gap between the 15 years in tech and outside of it. Boy, there's a whole lot there that you knocked out. What was it inside tech that you were doing? What kind of tech company was it?
The tech was pretty much a solution to fill a gap that wasn't there. There were opportunities for organizations I was working with. They wanted to build platforms where people could connect, people could share things, people could view resources, but they didn't want to use public or third-party platforms. They didn't want to use groups like Facebook or like circles or things like that. They wanted to have community software to be able to take advantage of special deals, special relationships, special programs. So that's more or less what I backed into, is that opportunity to build that. I learned how to be a really good product designer, product manager, team leader. I was never a coder, but I did understand what our development and code guys were doing and how they were building. So I was really more like a product designer, but I owned the company and owned the technology. And that was a lot of fun, but it was never my passion. It was something I was good at, paid well. And 6 months ago, everything hit a stopping point, and I had to decide pretty much overnight what I want to do with the rest of my life. And I'm sure you've been there. A lot of guys in your position have been there when you get out of service and you have to decide, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? Mm-hmm. It's an amazing thing to have that privilege, but it's a scary thing at the same time, because you really got to make a big decision about the rest of your life and what you want to do with it. And then you got to own that and live with it.
Tell me more about the Epic Grit Club. What is it that you're actually driving people through? What's your vision and mission for that? Let's dig in a little bit deeper on that.
So the mission of the Epic Grit Club is to help business leaders, owners, and operators understand the value of grit, how to cultivate it and grow it on an everyday basis, and then how to use that grit to change their own world so that they can impact more people. So we start with, what is grit and why is it valuable? So the understanding is that grit is the ability to do hard things on purpose. And you can grow that skill by doing things that exceed your current capabilities, by struggling and overcoming struggle. And really, a lot of business owners, and I approach business owners because I've been there and I've seen the unique cycles of business owners. A lot of people who've built successful businesses did it by utilizing grit. It's a common trait in entrepreneurs, business builders, wealth creators. But once you achieve a certain level of success, it becomes much easier to embrace comfort, luxury, and things like that, which can often erode the grit that you once had. And then you wake up one day and you don't have that grit that you had before. And so it's actually the success that erodes the comfort, or the success that brings the comfort, and then the comfort erodes the grit. And likewise, then you have kids and you can afford every luxury for your kids, and then your kids don't have the grit that you had. So we want to try to solve what I call the grit gap, which is that grit brings success, brings comfort, erodes grit, and then you're back to zero. So the idea is that first we have to understand the value of it. Second, we have to know how to grow it. And that's by challenging yourselves every day, every week, a couple times a year to do really hard, really uncomfortable stuff. Starts with mindset, then it goes into action, then it goes into results. And that's what we did. We formed a club. People have accountability with other people. We do weekly grit challenges. These are just hard things on purpose. It could be a physical thing. It could be a relationship thing. It could be a project-oriented goal that you've been avoiding, and you have to identify that and what you can do to overcome it. This week, we're playing a thing called the rejection game, where you've got to get rejected once a day, 7 days in a row. It's just to get rid of the fear of failure. So I asked my Amazon guy if he'd go to lunch with me. I asked a guy at Dave & Buster's if he'd let me be a free game tester for an hour. I asked a famous scientist if he'd let me test one of his experiments on me for 30 days. So those are just things that you're going to get rejected at. You got to get rid of that fear of getting rejected. And that's our grit challenge for the week. So I'm having a blast. I'm leading guys through their own grit journeys. It's not about being an amazing athlete. It's just about challenging yourself to get into uncomfortable things, do the uncomfortable things, and then apply that to be a better business leader, a better father, a better husband. I've been around some of the hardest races and survival events in the world with a lot of people. And we have a saying called, so what, now what? The so what is you just did this event that was awesome. The now what is, what are you going to do with that, right? If you don't do anything to change the rest of your life with what you just learned, you failed the event. You finished the event, but if you don't change your life, the takeaway is what matters. If the only thing you do is get better at learning how to carry around a 100-pound sandbag through the wilderness in Mongolia, or how to build an ice skate, listen, those are very limiting skills. You're not going to be able to use the world with that skill, and you're not probably going to ever be able to use it much in the rest of your life. If you learn how to take that, extrapolate it, be a better father, business leader, husband, and a friend, you can change your world.
That's funny. Yeah. Walk me through, tell me some more of the grit. The reason I'm asking is I'd love to put my kid through some of these grit things as well. Because I think that we could set up some grit games for all of our kids that will help build this out. There's that saying, as you were saying, going through the grit has caused you to be able to be a successful entrepreneur. It reminds me of that wonderful thing of hard times create strong men, create good times, create weak men, create hard times, create strong men. It just keeps going. So, and we've talked about it multiple times in GoBundance, like how do we make sure that our kids get the resilience that they need, that we had to build going through the things we did, that they're never going to hopefully ever have to experience. So on a weekly basis, you're putting a bunch of guys who are very successful through some things that make it difficult for them. What are some more examples of some of these things that make it difficult for them that you're forcing people to go into to stretch their limits?
Yeah. So we've got a yearly.
Don't share too much because people still need to be able to go and join so that they don't know what to expect.
We do a yearly program. It's 52 weeks. So we're doing 52 grit challenges a year. And we've just gone through our 10th week because we just launched 4 months ago. But in our first 10 weeks, we've done an anonymous gratitude challenge where you had to go personally benefit an individual in some meaningful way where you didn't get any credit or any recognition or any benefit. You can't help someone who can help you back. So the challenge we went through, we did a progressive plank challenge where the first person to post had to do a 5-minute challenge, and every other person who posted had to do 30 seconds more. It was a last man standing thing, which was just everybody. But the takeaway there is most people thought they couldn't even do a 5-minute plank. But then the guys, they could do 5 minutes, were doing 7 or 8 or 9. The guys who didn't think they could do 6 or 7 were doing 9, 10, and 11. And we got up pretty high, right? The idea is that people don't realize how strong they are until they have to prove it.
Yeah.
And most don't put themselves in a situation where they have to prove it because they're afraid of it, right? One of the guys in our group is Charlie Engle. He's the only guy alive who's run across the beast. And people ask him, how did you run across the Sahara Desert? That's impossible. He said, because I refused to quit. I refused to say it wasn't possible. I just did that. My body did it. Now, not everybody could just go on and do that. There was a lot of training. There was a lot of work. But at the end of the day, the difference maker was he demanded his body to rise to the occasion, and it eventually did. And that's the lesson I take away from that. So we've got challenges where guys are having to be vulnerable with each other. They're having to record a video, answer 7 questions that are really difficult to answer, require a lot of thought about emotions, confidence, things they want to be accountable for. And they're putting it out there. Guys are sharing some things they never shared before with a group of people that they trust. These are scary, hard things, even for guys that have achieved great levels of success. And the average net worth of the 30 founding members is probably north of 4 million. But these guys, we all have struggles. We're all human beings with fragile issues and challenges we've got to overcome. And everybody starts where they are today, and we got to measure the gain, not the gap.
Right.
That's the ecosystem of this. And then a couple of times a year, we get together, we do a 6-hour or 12-hour or a 24-hour epic grit event where we're really challenging everything. There's sleep deprivation, there's food deprivation, there's 60-pound sandbags being passed around, there's water, there's lots of tools that will bring out the demand to be stronger. And we're going to celebrate that. We're going to celebrate failure. We're going to celebrate overcoming failure. We're going to celebrate a newfound strength that'll reset the bar for what you're capable of in the future. That's really what we're doing with the club.
That sounds like an extreme amount of fun. And I look forward to hearing more about what goes on there.
I had a great free high school and high school sports career in baseball. I'm an outdoor guy, love being outdoors, love sports. But because of our economics, you just didn't have much money. You didn't have anyway encyclopedias or anything for me to do the AP classes and the book reports I needed. Tell my parents, like, man, if we had a computer, I saw they had a Circuit City and encyclopedia for $50. And a couple of family friends heard about it, and my uncle, and they chipped in and gave my parents some money. They'd get a computer, and the second time it broke, I thought, man, I can't wait for this thing to be fixed. I took it apart, I fixed it, something clicked, and next thing I know, that was God had a whole different plan. I thought I would go the college route on some full ride scholarship offers for baseball, and next thing I knew, I was staying up all night for this freshman year of high school, really the summer over 8th grade before high school, drilling holes in the floor. Had phone lines running everywhere underground, literally ate up every phone line available in the neighborhood. Friends' parents getting mad because they couldn't get a second line. They're like, there's some guy down the street, he's eating up every phone line. And that turned into actually being recruited at 17 to work for a 550 employee, $80 million a year company, and became their IT director at 17 years old. They were going to lose a $20 million a year Walmart account if they didn't do this thing called an EDI, which I had no idea what that even stood for at the time or knew. And long story short, I interviewed at their CPA's office because they're like, we know we need you to build a network out, do this. We don't even know how to interview you. So there I am at 17 in my 8800 board stick shift at the top of some glass building in Walnut Creek was one of the larger CPA firms, meeting with their CEO and IT team. I don't even remember what I said or how I got through it, but apparently I did okay. I got the job.
Well, it helps when they don't know what to ask you about, right? So,
yeah, that does help. First help. And got the job and through some various things. I think probably being not technology grounded. I'm not a gamer, not into most things that a lot of tech people are, but I'm always been into relationships and people, fascinated with business. And I fixed the Walmart problem in a couple weeks, and I went to my boss and I said, hey, Brian, I can make the network faster, or I can make it store more. I don't know what we would do with it. Can I learn the business? Can I go sit with every department for a couple weeks, and then let's come up with a plan to implement technology to actually solve business problems? 1 year later, we'd saved $250,000 in admin costs and overhead. And other businesses started asking if I could help them. I started my own sole proprietorship, JB Networks, and the first summer I made $50,000 in 2 months. And it was, okay, I got to do this. And I reached out to a good friend of mine since 3rd grade and said, hey, IT, these guys are terrible. They don't show up on time. They're rude to people. This is back early 2000s, around 2002. And I said, I think if you could show up on time, talk to someone like a normal human being, make eye contact, you could kill it in this business. Mm-hmm. That's what we did. And we've been blessed. We made the Inc. 5000 list the first 6 years in a row in business. And it's been a fascinating ride. So I own a technology company called Data with my business partner, David. And we're all up and down California in
up and down Ohio and parts of the East Coast. We've been rapidly expanding. And we've really focused on cybersecurity and networking for large organizations, enterprises, stuff like that. The great thing I could say, Adam, bring full circle, is I've had some great mentors in my life and they told me, hey, I've made a lot of money and I would go back and trade it all to have the time back with my kids or a relationship with my kids. And I took that to heart from day one. My son has always been my priority. He's always been involved and he has my time and attention first and foremost. And I'm so blessed. I have an amazing, fantastic relationship in it.
That's great to hear. Yeah, it doesn't always happen, especially when you're starting that young and pushing that hard on building something, to at least have that thought process going to be able to build that relationship and push that. So that's phenomenal that you've got that.
I had started in real estate, and my real estate journey has spread throughout my military career. And that's probably how it got started. And as I invested in other stuff, I got a lot more serious and intentional about it a couple of years ago as I was looking at my transition out of the military on the horizon. And, what I didn't want a 9-to-5 for some very specific reasons. And it drove me to be a little bit more systematic instead of opportunistic in my real estate journey. And what I'm doing now, primarily my focus inside real estate right now is helping educate and provide opportunity to investors, passive investors, through the acquisition of multifamily and other commercial real estate and stuff, so that they can focus on the things that are important in their life, whether that's their W-2 or travel or the family or whatever. I don't know if I would necessarily say I'm felt super stuck yet. Probably like on the earlier, there's been enough like transition a little bit. First couple of years that after I started, it was before I retired, and I was working the military job during the day a lot of times. And of course, this was in England. So I'd come home usually a couple hours in the morning before I went to work. I'd do the military job, come home, and sometimes be on calls or stuff till 10 o'clock at night. We were 6 hours ahead of the time zone in which most of our operations and stuff were. So I'm making calls and stuff like that. And so I certainly don't think there was a lot of time during that period to get bogged down. I was trying to build it quickly, ensure that it was a little further down the runway as I made the transition. And I will say this whole like last year since we moved back, and I'm balancing that business and family and stuff like that. There's some times I'm trying to figure out like what is the right amount of time. That's what have been one of my focuses over this year, is to try to think about like for the family and myself, like where do we want to be? And so perhaps the reason I haven't felt like I've gone too routine and family all the time and no business is just the time scale. Like military, every 3 years, we kind of PCS and stuff. And so, that building it up quick for the first 2 years, and then the transition over here in the past year of it. I can certainly see one of the things about this, like I'm working from home most of the time, and I realized very quickly, I don't really enjoy it that much. I like the ability to be able to do some stuff from home, but I'm also pretty social. And so a variety of things. There's other aspects, mental things like we don't think about. Like it's super sunny here today, but we have like mature trees right outside the house, so it just look like that much like natural daylight in the house. And so I think just from a mental health perspective and things, like I've become like self-aware over some things over the past year when like I'm the only one in the house, super sunny and things like that. And so I'm trying to figure out. I recently started going to a co-working space sometimes, just break up the environment, be around some other people and do things like that. And so that's some kind of things I'm trying to do just to see what works, what doesn't work, what kind of feels, and just make some adjustments.
Yeah, I'm selfishly asking that question, and because I find myself doing that, almost the routine stuff, to the point where I'm doing more transactional work at this point instead of transformational. It's just like, okay, let me just knock these things out because I know they need to be done. And it's, I'm not moving the needle as much as I feel like I should be, or where I'm going to be, and catching myself in that rut. And maybe it's because of the same thing. The military forced you to move around all over the place and do different things, and that forces you to adjust your clock. Right about the time you're getting into a good solid routine on doing those transactional versus transformational, they're like, you're going to learn something new. Yeah.
I can really appreciate that aspect of what you just said, though, because I can see that in my own routines over this past year, trying to protect that time for kids on the front or back end of the day. And I have a number of calls. Like I did do some coaching, real estate coaching in a mastermind. I've also been some real estate coaching coaching inside the Connecticut Command. And so I had some of those things giving them purpose a little bit outside of my own business necessarily, but also in between some of those calls or maybe calls with investors or whatever, sometimes if you are doing those more transactional or just checkbox type things, one of the things I've done probably in the last 3 or 4 months is I hired a full-time assistant. And that has, not to say that I'm still working on that, our processes and our relationship and what she's doing and things. But one of the things I have found is a lot of those kind of checkbox type things between calls or whatever, I'm starting to be able to hand off to her. It's like, we finished recording this podcast. I'm not like, oh, I need to do X, Y, Z. Okay, she has that. And maybe we can lock off some more time for those like transformational things that you're talking about. Instead of just always, us entrepreneurs, we always have 1,000 things running through our head. Yeah. If I can get 900 of those off of my head, maybe, and I can hopefully try to create a little bit more time where I have some focus on whether I'm creating some content or creating something educational.
So I would say that probably like most people, in particular in the personal finance realm or the fire realm more specifically, I was running from something to start with, right? Yeah. I was running from running out of money. I was then running from having to work after the military. It seemed bonkers to me that people could do 20 years in the military and have a full retirement and then feel like this rush of financial weight on the other side of it. To me, it was like the greatest unlock. Oh, you put in your 20 hard years and now you can go do whatever you want to because you have this guaranteed safety net for us. So I was running away from that. I wanted to just have more. I wanted to have that nebulous enough after I got out to do whatever I wanted. And then I think probably having a family and I had a hard time putting my finger on the change in why and what I was running to until actually just recently. I knew that it had changed. It was, okay, I want to have enough for my family so that we are stable and we have a comfortable life, but it doesn't need to be extreme. I love, like in the personal finance realm, I used to like hand books to people if they asked me a question at work. So especially in my military unit, I would never be the one who like tried to jump into a money conversation, but you become known, right? Like, you were probably known as the real estate guy and people bring questions to you and you start to become the go-to for a certain subject. And so that was with me with personal finance. And so anytime like a co-pilot was sitting next to me over the middle of the Atlantic in the middle of the night and asked me a money question, like I see, like they're like looking at me and they dip their toe into the conversation. And then an hour later, we're still talking about it. And I was like, I realized, okay, he's actually interested in this. I would get his address and I would send him 2 books. So The Simple Path to Wealth and The Psychology of Money. There's a third book that I've actually added to that just recently, and it's Die with Zero. And that book really changed my perspective on, and I think it gave me some language and some words to what I was already feeling in terms of that why, which was, okay, I want to maximize the memory dividends for me while I am alive, and then my children following when I am no longer alive. And so that really now is my why. And it has changed, I wouldn't say drastically, but it has changed some fairly significant decisions that we have made even around like how we deal with money or finances. Or I would say that the sprint towards financial independence is less important. We've made some very, like you're saying about the business versus work at home, and you're sacrificing something there for a very purposeful why. We have made some choices that were memory dividend building, but costly in terms of like financial independence aspect. So that would be my why at this point. So when we had our first kid, I was also working for Choosify, which we can get into, right? Like I'd heard the podcast and read the books and had started to create multiple streams of income and scratch that entrepreneurial itch. I want to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to start my own business, which has a lot of difficulty in that. Yeah. And that is the paths you hear most talked about. But I took a separate path, which is I'm going to take a W-2 that I have so much control over the levers of time worked and money made that I can box it. I can build a fence around it that is impenetrable for the most part. And that allows me then to focus my time, energy, and efforts on everything else, family, business, passions that I want to do. So that's what led me to the choice to get out. And I think in the military and in a lot of W-2s and a lot of defined role jobs, you are maximizing for whatever your position is, for whatever like your organization's definition of success is. And David, who does a lot of the kind of deep thinking and writing for Connect Man, he uses this phrase a lot. What is your definition of success? A lot of people, a lot of men in particular, are living either intentionally or unintentionally somebody else's definition of success, whether that's in the military and your unit's metrics, whether that's the quote unquote American dream, wherever it is. And so your definition of success is simply maximizing for something different than work efficiency. But most men never get to that point, never get to the point of realizing something like you just said, which is that that's okay. I would rather see my kid walk by the window than accomplish 5 more pages of content writing today, because that's success. And so it's one of the things that I had to learn coming out, again, as part of that detox year, right? It's just, it's okay. This is what I'm here for. I really love it. It's a cliche story analogy, but I do love it. And I go back to it a lot in here mentally, which is the story of the fisherman, right? The fisherman sitting by the side of his boat, playing his guitar. And like a businessman asks him, why are you playing your guitar instead of going out? And he's like, caught everything I needed for the day. You can get a bigger boat, and then you can catch more fish, and then you can build a business and have multiple boats and people working for you. And then once you do all that, like, you'll be able to retire. And the fisherman basically says, like, well, when I retire, I would sit next to my boat playing my guitar. So like that story, which I butchered terribly, really resonates with me. Sitting at home in my home office and trying to get as much done as I can. And there's these passions and businesses that are good and are making solid impacts in the world. But like, really, what am I maximizing for? I'm maximizing for enough for my family, and then the most time and impact I can have on my wife and kids as they grow up. And so I think about that a lot.
I was bullied as a kid. I had a passion to help other kids develop confidence and not be bullied. And that's what I want to do. I want to teach them to be good fighters, right? Because why? I learned how to fight for a little dude, built up confidence. Bullies never picked on me ever again. Even though I'm like 5'6", I walk around like I'm 6'6", so the confidence. And then we bartered. It took over the school. Nothing was working. I had a mentor of mine give me a book, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I'm sure you read it. A lot of your probably listeners have read it. I read it once a year, or actually I highlight, and kind of after I meditate, I look through passages. Changed my life, man. I got addicted to personal growth, Adam. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, every seminar I can get my hands on, I attended. Every book I listened, I read. Every audio book I listened to. And since then, fast forward, I probably traveled literally around the world: Thailand, Fiji, Australia. Not only the martial art competition, but I studied some of the most influential leaders that taught peak performance, potential, mindset, everything. Probably over 500K in personal development. And then my business changed. And I remember watching The Karate Kid. Now, have you watched this movie?
Of course.
How many times have I watched that movie growing up as a kid? But now I'm 20, 21 years old. I'm looking at it from a different lens, Matt, right? And I'm like, and I'm going through all this personal development, like really like thinking about my legacy, thinking about who I am as a man, what I want in my future. And I'm like, wow, I'm like the Cobra Kai dude, the Cobra Kai guy. And at the same transition of time, that was my original teacher. My original teacher was a 6'2", big Irish heavyweight national champion. And guess what? He taught all of us how to fight. We were like, I was raised like the Cobra Kai dojo. We'd go to tournaments and I'd be like, sir, we're not allowed to kick this tournament. We're not allowed to kick to the head. You got, here's $100, get disqualified. That was the way we were taught. And that's the way I taught kids. I just had no level of awareness.
Yeah.
I was introduced to my new teacher, Grandmaster Kim, who was basically Mr. Miyagi. And between his teachings, from Grandmaster Kim, from all my personal development experience, really evaluating myself, evaluating my mission, what I call worthy ideal in my book, that's what I call it. I started injecting not only character development, but leadership training, mindset training into my curriculum. And honestly, that's where the value blew up. And people, when I say people, parents will be sitting in the waiting area listening to me teach their children. And they come up to me going, wow, Grandmaster Melella or Master Melella, but what you said, it really hit home with me. Like, yeah, here's a uniform. Come on the floor, train with me.
Yeah.
And that's when my business blew up, really at. I literally worked on myself. And then I poured into my students and my business blew up, like in a good way. I had parents, I had families. I would have like adults, not just kids, right? Kids were developing confidence and believing themselves, increasing grades, developing leadership. But parents were going, hey, Grandmaster Melella, I lost 20 pounds, but my attitude shifted. Like I got asked to be a partner in my firm. I just literally doubled my income. Man, how can I help more people? How can I help more people? And I did. My business vertically, it grew, and then sometimes it caps out, right, in a certain demographic. And then we wanted to grow like horizontally with opening other locations. But I wanted to think bigger. And then that's when someone said, you got to write a book. And I attended this program with Bob Proctor, if you know who that gentleman is. I had the name.
Yeah.
He was in the movie The Secret years ago, and he just recently passed away. And I did some training with him, right? I was a mentorship underneath him, and we became these life success consultants underneath Bob Proctor. And in a roundabout way, he was one of the influences besides Tony Robbins, T. Harv Eker, strategic coach, you name them. I went through it all, right? And when I had a client of mine who was actually my financial advisor. And I remember he was a very successful man. He was like 15 years my senior. And he was in my class and I'm teaching him and his son. And I remember after class, I walked up to him and I said, hey, Nick, he's a financial advisor, very successful man. I said, hey, I'm going to be doing this certification to become a life coach. And I started telling him about what I'm going to be doing. He goes, that's what I want to do too. I'm like, really? Because I was trying to get into his network, right? I want to get into the financial services world. I want to teach and personally coach guys or gals in that world, right? Go outside my martial arts school. And it was me too. And so what happened was him and I started talking to each other. My childhood best friend, not my bully, my partner, Chris Burlow, Grandmaster Chris Burlow, we're the ones that kind of founded United Martial Arts Centers with one other of my friends and colleagues, this guy, Ed. And him and I would always meet and we'd always talk about how we can expand our businesses and whatever. And so we always talk about writing a book. So the three of us collaborated and we all got this certification. But we all had successful businesses. Two of us had martial art businesses. My friend Nick had a successful financial service firm, but his best friend, this guy Rick, was like a retired millionaire before he was like 30 or 40 years old. Mm-hmm. And we all collaborated and we created our company, Empowered Mastery, and we co-authored the book, You Have Infinite Power, together. And then from there, I branched off and I expanded my worthy ideal where I'm inspiring, leading, and teaching business owners and business leaders to really just to become the best version of themselves, for them to create multidimensional success.
Through college, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I remember thinking about becoming a teacher, like looking at firefighting. Like I went through it all. And my dad really did help me. He's, look, do what makes you happy. But he also really told me, like, look, but you got to also make money. Don't think you could just run off somewhere and not make money. You're going to want to make sure you're in a position to make money. And so that was a really helpful conversation. But real estate to me is really simple, especially residential. It's like people have to sleep somewhere. I'm like, it's pretty easy to figure out, like, where do people want to live? What kind of features do they want? It was just really simple. For me to get into it, it was just like a really easy transition. And to be honest, I looked at a lot of real estate people and they all seem pretty wealthy. And so I'm like, there must be something to that. And it doesn't seem like so complicated. So let me get a job and learn. And that's really where I run a couple real estate companies. So one is a value-add multifamily fund. So we buy kind of distressed apartment buildings between 10 and 50 units, renovate them, kind of stabilize them at some higher rents, refinance and hold on to them. And then also do private lending. So we have like hard money loans to a lot of borrowers and, friends from my network. It's kind of how we're starting. And so we lend money to fix and flippers throughout the kind of this region here, this Philadelphia region. And the whole foundation of that was to be able to provide investors with two real estate options that are cash flowing, but very different. And so, love both those industries. And I always looked up to my investors who are in both. I was like, that's really smart to have both those types of asset classes.
So talk to me about your business and what we already talked about like on a very surface cursory level, the death side of the house and what that means and how you're living your life. But what does that mean for you, like moving forward on your business?
I'd say first, I'm building businesses that are really cash flow focused because I really want to generate cash flow that's I think is the key to financial freedom.
Mm-hmm.
That's important for my family, but at the same time, I'm setting up these funds so that it's not just me. It's also my network. It's my friends. It's our investors who can participate in this and generate cash flow. And I think we can have a bigger impact and do more deals like the more people we have involved in our network. So first thing I'd say for family is like, how do we figure out how to generate cash flow?